What's up, everybody? How's everyone doing? Welcome to another outstanding episode of Rocket Live. Thank you, everyone who's joining us live right now, as we do every single Tuesday at 4 p.m. Thank you to everybody who will be watching a replay of this later on. If you can't join us live, that's okay. That's why there's replays. And thanks, everybody who's going to listen to the audio version of this later on. And I will get it up there as soon as I can. So, but for everybody watching or listening, you could always watch the video version, which you could see over on our YouTube channel, Rocket Growth Agency. Go there and you can see all the past interviews that I've done. If you want to subscribe to the audio version of the podcast, you can do that by going anywhere that you get the podcasts, that you listen to podcasts. I will say the audio versions are a little behind. So if you want all the most up-to-date interviews, definitely head over to the YouTube channel, Rocket Growth Agency, and you will see all of them so neatly cataloged for your viewing and listening enjoyment. Today, I've got an amazing guest in the virtual studio. I want to welcome Mr. Benno Nelson to the show, man. How are you, brother?
Great good, Chris. How you doing, dude?
Good, man. Really good. Really good. And I'm really excited to have you on today because you are probably I think you are one of the first guests that I've had on from the coaching group that you and I are a member of, Dallas Travers 6-Figure Coach Club. And you and I have just similar stories. It's funny how we've sort of I won't say opposite sides of the world, but we're sort of I'm East Coast, you're southern part of the country, basically. And totally. But you and I have very similar backgrounds for sure. So I was really excited to get you on the show and we could talk and have a great conversation.
Absolutely excited to be here.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And I want to say, hey, what's up, Doina? Thanks for checking in. I hope you enjoy the show. For anybody else watching live, please feel free to participate. Since this is a live show, we always welcome comments and questions as we go along. So feel free to put them in a chat wherever you're watching. We are streaming this live on LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube. So if you're on any of those platforms joining us live, just drop them in and we will get to them as soon as we can. And now I want to jump right in here. So, Benno.
Yes, sir.
Love it, man. So you've got a great background. And when I say we're coming from similar backgrounds, so for people who have been listening to the show or watching the show for a while, I think some of you may know, at least some of the regulars know, that my background was in video production for 20 plus years. I was the co-founder of a video production agency called Gray Sky Films, which is now my business partner, now runs that by himself. And you and I started off in the music video landscape before we went more into the corporate and commercial agency side. And you definitely cut your teeth on the music video side as well. So why don't you give everybody some context, a little background about your journey into the world of video and film?
Yeah, absolutely. Similar to yourself, I have both a rock and video background. I spent my 20s playing in bands in Minneapolis, Minnesota. I did that, and worked every hipster job you could work in that city. Worked at nightclubs and record stores and vintage clothing stores and just anything to allow me enough time to play in my band. And then in my late 20s, I kind of transitioned out of the band world and into the film and video world, which led me to Los Angeles. I figured if I got to make it, I have to be in either New York or LA, and LA was the choice for me. And then I worked for 10 years as a freelance director and editor in LA, mostly in the music space, music videos, but also content for record labels. Warner LA was one of my main clients in that front. And after 10 years about doing that, I started my own production company in LA. And again, the bulk of our business was doing music content for record labels, again, music videos, but right. EPKs, behind the scenes, concert stuff, social stuff, anything like that. And did that for about 10 years and I served as owner and senior creative director for that. And then in 2017, my family and I moved to Nashville, which is where I am now. And I worked for Warner Music Nashville, which I had done work for, my production company had done work for. And I was the director of video content for that, which is basically then just on the other side of the fence of what I had been doing. Rather than being a client, or rather than being a vendor, I was a client, which was super enlightening. And now I work with video freelancers to help them on their journey to grow their business and move from working gig to gig to a prosperous career. So that's kind of my journey in a nutshell.
You make it sound so easy.
Yeah, I know. Many trials and victories along the way, of course.
Oh, of course, absolutely. I mean, and and it's wild, man. So I mean, you were definitely my East Coast experience in the video world was I'm sure vastly different from your experience in the LA side, and that was always sort of my dream, was to say, okay, well, we're gonna do work in the East Coast here in Jersey, New York area, and then we'll eventually relocate in LA and do that whole thing and get involved in that scene and all that, and
sure,
make $1 billion and light $100 bills on fire with smoking cigars and everything. But that didn't happen. But
right.
but it is so being involved in that scene, as opposed to the East Coast scene, I'm sure you definitely got to to be around a lot of different things, see a lot of things, but also that experience to sort of be like right in the heart of the industry is where it is. I mean, East, not to take anything away from the East Coast at all, but I mean, the West Coast is definitely like where it's at.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, and when I work with my clients today, a question comes up is they ask like, well, I'm thinking about moving to Los Angeles, or do you think that's a good idea? And there are other markets, definitely,
Right.
New York and Austin and Seattle and
Yeah.
where there's either tech or showbiz, but I'm like, LA is kind of the epicenter of it all. And there's a ton of competition, obviously, but then also a ton of opportunity. And it is really the video showbiz capital of our country.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's funny though, because you are in Nashville now.
Oh.
And that is definitely, when you start to think of the hotbeds of entertainment, especially music. I mean, Nashville is like literally, like, at this point now, I'd say like the heartbeat of America. I mean, there's so much music coming in out of Nashville. So the opportunity there to grow, a thriving, production company was probably a unique opportunity in itself.
Yeah, absolutely. Nashville's definitely, booming. It's been booming for the last, I don't know, probably 7 years starting, maybe even earlier than that. And the pandemic has, even accelerated that. Our neighbor's a realtor, and she's like, man, people are moving from California and New York by the truckload. So it's, it's definitely a city booming. There's cranes all through downtown and all that stuff. And it's, historically been a music town, music city, country music obviously is what it's known for, but there's other thriving scenes here too. And definitely it's like stacked wall to wall with music events and opportunities and music videos being done here and all that stuff. And especially actually, during the pandemic when travel was, not a wise choice to be making, that a lot of videos were being done here. And I think that really bolstered the community here.
Yeah, I mean, and that is definitely something, I think that is a pretty unique perspective, because the pandemic affected different parts of this country in different ways, definitely state to state. I mean, and even in some instances, like county to county, were, affected differently, in the sense of like if the state didn't have any kind of mandates going on, it's like some of these counties impose their own, and it's definitely it's been definitely a very confusing time. I mean, things now where we are as we record this this video, this interview, it's June, so we're starting to come out of a lot of these things. Things have definitely opened up a bit more. I mean, there's still things happening where it's the same's not for the rest of the world. But at least for in the United States in particular, things are starting to come back online. But I think that's actually a pretty unique observation, I think, from your point of view, from where and what and how business was affected in your area. Because here on the East Coast, like New York, New Jersey, Philadelphia, Boston, Connecticut, I mean, when it locked down from the video industry completely shut down for a very long time. And so, but then it's like, but then you talk about Nashville and that area, and it was kind of like still going. Like I'm sure it slowed down, but it didn't come to a grinding halt.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, obviously when the pandemic first hit, everybody locked down and was like not sure where to go and what the next move would be. And I think Nashville was much looser than New York and LA or the East Coast and West Coast in terms of their mindset and stuff, for good and bad,
Right.
But for when I was at Warner for a large chunk of that, and we had COVID protocols in place. Those, I mean, those are definitely like, obviously you want to have those in place, but you're all actually, I was on a set, shooting in a small house. I mean, all of us were wearing masks and had temperature taken and a log of all that. But the next day, one of the band's managers came down with COVID, and we were like, oh no.
Oh man.
Fortunately, nobody else got it. I don't know how that happened, but nobody else got it. But I think Nashville definitely had a looser approach to it than the coast did.
Yeah.
And again, good and bad. But one of the upsides to it was that the community here got a boost, because I would say it was kind of like 50-50 in terms of the amounts of videos that were shot here versus LA, maybe 60-40, 60 LA, but during the lockdown, or during the pandemic, I should say, obviously everything was being done here. And that was a boost to the community here in terms of work and, getting artists on their reels and all that stuff.
Right. Yeah. I mean, and it's, listen, it's that stuff still needs to happen, and somebody needs to make those and create all these things, because there's still that side of the business that's going, and somebody has to create the videos. I mean, it's people were still seeing commercials on TV, and even with some shows that had slowed down, like those things still needed to be edited. There was still stuff in the hopper, and there were ways to keep creating and keep producing content through all this. And yes, like you said, some states were a little more relaxed than others, and then that's just the way it goes. Like, what are you gonna do about it, But what I want to talk about is to kind of go into like your transition, because you decided to start pursuing the career change of a coach, mentor, consultant, and specifically working with freelancers in the video industry. So what led you down this road? Because I feel like you and I share very similar backstories when it comes to this.
Yeah, totally.
But I always find it really interesting to see what somebody's spark was for them to make that jump.
Yeah, so I had an idea in probably August of 2020 that I really enjoy being of service and sharing information and helping out where I can. And I guess in some respects I was inspired by the show Queer Eye, which like those guys all move in and then with a really positive vibe, they just like totally upend and change somebody's life, and it's such a good vibe, man. I was like, those guys are like my spirit animals. But so I had this idea of like, like I want to coach some freelancers, and so I just reached out to some local freelancers, and I'm like, hey, I want to give this a shot. Are you interested? It's free. I was just starting out,
Mm-hmm.
and they were like, yeah, hell yeah. So I just put together some workshops. Initially, I had one which I still have, called the Freelance Boot Camp, which is kind of like a nuts and bolts approach to being a better freelancer.
Mm-hmm.
I started one on music, how to write a good music video treatment. And it just kind of, I did the first one. I got some really great feedback. I really enjoyed it. And I just kind of kept going and started charging along the way. Again, I was like, look, I don't know what I'm doing, so I'm just going to try this for free. But then as things progress, I'm like, okay, yeah, I'll up my rates a little bit, from 0 to something.
Right. Some form of money.
Yeah, exactly. And then more and more. And then, again, like where we met through Dallas Travers, 6-Figure Coach Club, a buddy of mine turned me on to that. And that really busted the doors wide open. And for those people that don't know, it's a coaching group for coaches. A little meta there.
Yeah.
But at least my experience, I'd be curious what yours is. It's pretty ingenious. It's the way she has it laid out, like every step you do this, and it's super clear, and here are the actions you take. And that's really what kind of was a catalyst to really get my coaching career going. Yeah.
I mean, my story is there's, I guess, similar parallels, but I used to watch Queer Eye, great show.
Yeah.
But that wasn't a catalyst for
Right.
me. For me, it was more like, as I was doing my company over the years, I went from, being right in the trenches, camera in hand, shooting, directing, editing, to then evolving out of editing to just directing, producing, and doing business development, to straight up just basically doing business development, client relationships, all that. But along the way through all that, I always was making time to like mentor anybody who needed it. I would talk to a lot of people on the side and, just give my time wherever I could. And I really enjoyed it. Like I really enjoyed it a lot. And from there, it's sort of like snowballed for me in the sense of, wow, I've really been doing this for like the video side for over 20 years. Like, it's cool. I love doing video. I love creating. I love producing. I love working with people and helping them see their ideas. Like, that part of it, I love. But I definitely came to a point where I felt like, for myself, I wanted to do something different. Like, I wanted to take a jump and just change it up for this, not for the sake of changing things up, but because there was something else I just felt like was a little bit more fulfilling for me.
Yeah.
And that fulfillment was working and coaching other people and really sharing with them the set of experience and the stories and the things I learned along the way, which is what mentors for me did in my life along the way.
Yep.
And I just started feeling very compelled to do that, to share that, and to work with people. And while I was doing it for free for a while, I mean, I was like, okay, I think this is something I think I want to get up and do this every day rather than this.
Right.
And so when the pandemic happened and, things really slowed down here and lockdowns and
Yeah.
it was like all of a sudden someone turned off the faucet. And, once we took care of things we needed to take care of as a business, I just got to really like thinking about where I want to be in my life and, things, the feelings and thoughts that I had pushed way down because I was running another business, just I ignored them, but then it started like, pounding that door, like, hey, listen, like that voice in my head, like, hey, you know what? There's this other thing
Yeah.
And it just became louder and louder. And that's when I said, wow, I think I better really listen to what's going on here, because maybe this is what I'm supposed to be doing now. And that was it,
Absolutely.
man. I mean, once I started like listening to that and then obviously talking to people, and I mean, it was not a quick decision. Believe me, it was like really slow and methodical how
Right.
long it
Totally.
took for me to like come to the realization that I wanted to quit doing the thing that or leave or exit, I should say. I didn't quit. I exited the thing I built for 20 years with my best friend, and then now do something else was like really hard decision to make. But I felt like at the end of the day, it was the right one for me.
Yeah. Tell me a little bit, like, what were your first early steps like, and who were they with?
I would say my first early steps in this were with was really, thinking it out and kind of like I had a lot of internal struggle first, like I can't possibly be feeling this way. I can't
Right.
possibly be this is like ridiculous. This is ridiculous.
Yep.
Like,
Yep.
like, and if I want to do this, can't I just do them both? Like, can't I just do this and maybe do this at night or something like that, or whenever
Yeah.
I got free time? But I just was like, wait a second, this really, I don't think I can make these things coexist. So once I started coming to grips with, I think this is what I got. I think this is what I have to do. I went and I talked to my wife about it. Like, she was definitely the first one who I started talking about this. And then I had a couple other really close friends that I confided in about this. And, and they just kind of, nobody talked me into it. They just helped me sort of along the thought process of, and challenged me a bit too, which was really helpful of like,
Right.
like playing both sides of the fence of this. And,
Yeah. Absolutely.
and it was, yeah, it was. And I talked to a few other people I know in the industry who have made these same decisions and how they did it and how they went about it. And, everybody's got a different story. Um, so all that was really helpful. I think I just turned basically to the people close to in my network, people I knew I could trust and confide in, who, I would tell me how it is. Like,
Right.
Chris, this is a stupid idea and you should not do it. Like, I think you need to like, I get it, but like, you shouldn't be doing it. Like, none of that ever happened.
Right.
Nobody ever said this is a horrible idea and you are like an idiot for making this
Right.
decision, which I thought was going to happen. Honestly, I was waiting for somebody to tell me that, but nobody
Yeah.
did. So,
That's awesome, man. That's so cool. But I can relate a lot to that,
yeah,
like, struggle of like, wait, can I make a living doing this? Is this even legitimate?
right.
And I gotta say, and I'm not trying to be a shameless plug for Dallas's group, but being in a group of other coaches, you're like, oh wow, man, there's people that are doing all kinds of coaches for all sorts of issues and maladies and like careers, and like I'm like, whoa, there
I
are
know.
people doing this, and that was extremely eye-opening and helpful to me to be like, oh yeah, okay, there are people like making a sustained living as a coach.
Yeah. I agree with you 100% with that statement, because I have known plenty of coaches, and I've hired coaches throughout my career with Gray Sky.
Right.
But coming into that club, that Dallas's club, was like exactly what you just said. It was so eye-opening to be like, wow, there's like a coach for everything. Like, I
Yeah.
mean, like everything. And it's
Yeah.
cool, but like I never in my wildest dreams would ever thought about the different types of coaches there are and how they're helping people in all these different ways. Like you said, it's really um amazing, unique. And the other thing that I like too, which I'm sure you have found in talking to other people within the group and other coaches, are a lot of the shared similar like stories,
Hmm.
quote unquote origin stories of like their
Right.
coaching.
Right.
People who have left successful careers in, some corporate gigs or other ownership positions, or and I find that fascinating too, because I love here, because oftentimes, I'm sure you feel like this too. You kind of feel like you're alone in all this, even though
Yeah.
you're not, and there's this community and all, but you still feel like at the end of the day, like, oh my God, no one knows what I'm going through. No one knows the same struggles
Yep.
and then it's like, then you go into that group and you're like, oh no,
Yeah.
everybody does feel the same way I do. And people do have similar backstories on things. So
100%.
it's very comforting to know that that exists.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. And it is fascinating just the total variety and breadth of what the different kind of coaches do, you know. Yeah, I found that very comforting, and also Dallas's plan of like, okay, here's what you do, here's how you build the business, here's what you do, you know. Let me ask you, so obviously, you know, your company's called Rocket. What's your background in music? How did that, and obviously music, you know, you got the guitar and
Yeah.
AC/DC and everything behind you there. How did music shape you, and, you know, become such a integral part to your coaching business?
That is a great question. By the way, I want to thank you for asking me questions. So this is what makes this fun. This is why I always say this is a conversation.
Absolutely, dude.
I love this. So the genesis and the backstory of Rocket Growth Agency really starts with, I mean, if I'm going to go way back, I mean, it really starts with, you know, my original love into getting into like rock and roll music and just rock music in general. I mean, I grew up around rock music my whole life. My parents definitely were, you know, there was always Beatles and Doors and Allman Brothers and the Stone. I mean, just all the classic Led Zeppelin, all that was in my house all the time, always being played. And my first record I ever bought with my own money was this one. There it is, opposite back there, the Kiss Destroyer record.
No way. Sorry to
Yeah,
jump in. My first record that I bought with my money was Kiss Rock and Roll Over.
there it is.
Yep.
Rock and Roll Over, nice.
Yep. So that's so funny.
Yeah, so that was it. I mean, I think that's a product of being a kid in the 70s, you know. It's like,
Totally.
I mean, Kiss was it, right? I mean, they were the greatest
I have a
band in the world.
I have a theory actually that Kiss is the perfect bridge between superhero and rock band.
A great analogy, because it's true. They are larger than life. They're like comic booky, and
Yep.
I agree. That is a great statement. They really are a perfect bridge, and I think for, you know, kids our age back then, it was 100% what we needed, you know,
Yeah.
and it was just that it was the perfect blend, and that was my first like real fandom of being like into something like other
Mhm.
than Star Wars, which is the second, which is a whole other. So it's like Kiss and Star Wars, like that's my life, like when I'm a
Sure.
kid, and that was it. And so one led me onto the road of wanting to be a filmmaker and video and all that and creator, and the other one led me into the road of wanting to be a massive rock fan and get into music. And so that's the start of it. And then from there it just keeps going, because then Kiss turned into Van Halen, which my favorite band in the world, and then
Yep.
everything else, you know, metal, heavy metal, everything you think of. And then it eventually led to me getting very involved in the punk and hardcore scene.
Okay.
You know, because I feel like sometimes all roads lead to the Ramones. And then once you
Right.
get into the Ramones, things really get wild, because you're like, wait a second, these guys like created amazing songs with 3 chords, and like
Yeah.
it's amazing what they were able to do. And that just opened up a whole world of that. And then, but that punk and hardcore scene for me, like, tapped into something that, like, I am always been a huge metal fan, big metal head, but like, and I always loved that. It was always like, I always felt like a misfit to begin with. So metal was like the perfect thing for me to get into.
Sure.
Was angry, it was angsty, it was super technical. I love that because I'm a big Eddie Van Halen fan. So anybody that even remotely sounds like, I'm like, oh, that's great, I'm in. I love the heaviness of it, but the punk and hardcore aspect, when I got really into that, really spoke to me in a way that like metal, I felt like with metal, it was like, it was super cool, but you had to be like a super virtuoso to like really play metal and get into it. And I
Yeah.
just didn't have the patience to get to play that much guitar. Like I did not put in acquired 10,000 hours you need to be
Yeah.
like an amazing player.
Totally.
And I didn't have the dexterity and all that because I didn't practice enough. But punk and hardcore was like, wow, this I can get into. This I can play. This is accessible. And on top of that, like, it just was this entire community of being like talk about it. I mean, listen, not all aspects of punk and hardcore were inclusive. However,
Right.
It
Well,
was
yeah,
very inclusive to a point of like you could pretty much be and do whoever you want. You didn't have to ask permission for anything. If you wanted to
100%.
start a band and put a show on, yeah, go ahead, be my
Yeah,
guest. Like go rent the hall, go play in a basement, go play in a back. Like, it was just everything. And then all the creativity of putting out your own records and you can become an entrepreneur in the scene. Like there was so much lessons learned for me in life in punk and hardcore that I didn't realize I learned until I
mhm,
started business. That
mhm,
and to this day, I still lean on all those things of DIY and the mindset of things and positive mental PMA and just all that, and
yeah,
including the music too. And so that with Kiss and all this is like the giant answer that like Rocket Growth
yeah,
Agency is 100% like me. Like this is what I do, and this is also how I come at coaching. Is this mentality, like the rock and roll mindset? I'm like, you don't have to ask for permission to be yourself. Like, do the things you want to do. Like, lean into these things about you. Like, you want to stand out. You want to get noticed. Well, all you have to do is look inward. Like, you don't have to do anything fancy to stand out. Really, just start being more of yourself. Like, ditch the scripts. Like, start turning more inward about who you are, what you do, what you're into.
yeah.
Use that as your, hey, here I am, look at me, check me out, like I'm the go-to person, like this is what I'm knowledgeable about, blah 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 blah. But like,
Right.
and that's what Rocket Growth Agency is.
Nice, man. Nice. Just an aside, have you ever read the book Our Band Could Be Your Life?
Yep, I actually have it right here.
Yeah.
I have it right here.
Love that book. That is, and I've started rereading it. My daughter's really into Harry Potter, so at night,
Oh, nice.
when I'm tucking her in, she reads Harry Potter, and I read Our Band Could Be Your Life.
The book is so good.
Yeah,
It
so
is,
good.
and you're so right. It is so worth rereading parts of this book. I mean, you could reread the whole thing, but it is great that you can just pick up and read a chapter on like,
Yeah,
Black Flag, and it's like there it is, and Dinosaur Jr. And it's just, and there are so many lessons learned when you read those bits, and it's great. It is an awesome book. Yeah. So for anybody listening out there or watching this right now, whether you're into music or not into music, like this is just a great book to read because
yeah.
the stories are awesome.
And I've been reading the Minutemen section, and that is particularly like what you're talking about in terms
Yeah.
of, in connection with Rocket. It just like, DIY, figure out how to do it, go do it, be authentic, and by being authentic, that, like what you said, makes you stand out. Those guys who,
Yeah.
kind of blended all their weird genres together, and by doing that, being authentic to what they loved, they totally stood out.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. I mean, they, and whether you liked it or didn't like it, like they just didn't care. Like,
Yeah.
and that's the thing. You're not going to be, you're not going to be something for everybody. And so that's even too how I position. I know I'm not the coach in the suit or, posing in front of the Ferrari or the Maserati.
Right.
I don't claim to say you can grow a 9-figure business in 90 days if you follow my system. I mean, that's
Right.
just not me.
Who do you find yourself working with mostly?
So the people I find myself working with mostly tend to be actually something I didn't think about until recently because it started happening is other coaches have
Oh,
been
interesting.
working with me, which is something I just never even was on my radar until it started happening. So other coaches, definitely other creators. Like I with Dallas, it is my power statement is I work, I help creative business owners to create a rockstar brand and help them uh, um, feel confident bringing more clients or get noticed, feel confident bringing more clients. So creative business owners. So a lot of creators come my way, whether they're other video production, filmmakers, photographers, designers, podcasters, people in owning creative businesses, things like that tend to come my way.
Right.
But I've also got like, lawyers, accountants, people like that too, who are like, I'm out there, I'm trying to stand out. I'm trying to get, trying to do business. And, how do I stand out against 10 million other accountants doing the same thing I'm doing? Like it's numbers, I crunch numbers, but
Right.
so how do I stand out? Or,
Yeah.
the lawyer or, anybody in sort of professional services type of a thing, they'll come my way too.
That's amazing. That's so cool. Yeah, nice wide range of clients there.
Yeah, and that's, with creative business owners, it's like, listen, you got to be creative anyway to get into business. All businesses are creative to even start doing business, but in particular, the ones that are more attracted to what I do tend to be in that creative services area. And I think that has to do with my background, which is something I'm sure, and you're very specific to, video freelancers.
Yeah.
Now, do you get from your side with the video, are you mostly working with directors, or are you working with DPs and grips, gaffers? Are you working with anybody in hair and makeup? Like, are you working with all people who service the industry, or just specifically like directors and producers?
I would say mostly kind of quote unquote above the line
Right.
people, what they, it's a term in the industry for a certain amount of, or jobs above a certain line, I guess, imaginary line. I work mostly with directors, editors, DPs. I'm just trying to think of my client roster now. That's about it. Yeah, for sure. Okay. I'd be happy to work with the others, but right now it's kind of, those are the people that are gravitating to my message. Is definitely those directors, editors, DPs, photographers. I deal with photographers as well. Yeah. So
nice. And particularly, what are you finding to be like sort of like the common denominator where they need the most help?
Rates is a big area.
Figuring out what they should be charging.
Yep. And then staying with that and holding that. And I get it. See, it's interesting because a lot of these, these positions do deal with people, like obviously you're a director, you're on set, you're working with a bunch of people. Editors, more solitary kind of gig. But there's never really a forum for people, freelance world, to talk about doing business.
Right.
It's all kind of done in isolation.
Yeah.
So my thing is, like, for rates is like, do some research, see what your peers are making, and then adjust that with their skill level and expertise. If somebody is charging this rate, but they've got more years of, experience than you, then you might want to adjust that downward. And conversely, if you ask somebody and they've got less experience than you, then you bump their rate up. And that's how you kind of discover what your rate is. But it's by going out and doing some research. Ask people, like, what's your rate?
Right.
And also then standing by that rate as a statement of self-worth. Because your rate is more than just numbers. It's also a statement of worth. Like, this is what I'm worth. And so I tell my clients to do kind of a 3-step thing of, like, write it down, like physically write down what your rate is, and then put it somewhere where you can see it every day, by your computer, by the bathroom mirror, whatever, and practice saying it. And so you're kind of, that is the method of internalizing your rate. So then the time comes when somebody asks you your rate, you just say, like, hey, my rate's $900 for the day, or whatever it is. So I deal with rates a lot. I deal with reaching out to clients a lot, attracting more a diversified client base. What else do I deal with a lot? Reels and websites is a big thing that I
was just going to ask you about that. Do you get into, like, looking at somebody's site or their work and giving them advice as to, because that is a big one, because that's to me, being, someone in creative, it's like you never feel like you're putting out the best stuff. You're constantly tinkering with it and constantly feeling like, oh, I can make this better. I mean, and that's the nature of being a creator, right? Is like that the site is never finished. The reel is never finished. And you always want to update these things, but it's tough when you don't have someone else to come in with an eye and be like, actually the thing that you do think is in your reel should probably come out.
Right.
You should be doing a little bit more of this in your reel. You need people to come in and tell you that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I do, I've built cut reels for myself, and I've built websites for myself. And then also, being in my position at Warner, being the kind of gatekeeper for reels and sites and treatments that are sent my way, sent my way. You definitely see, like, the best way to get yourself out there like my golden rule with reels is 1 minute in length. And it's, again, your reel is just a hook to get people to go investigate you further. Right. So, and I do give my creative input on those reels. Like, hey, let's start with your biggest names and most impressive shots at the top of the reel. Again, people have a limited window of time to, for you to sell yourself to them, to hook their attention. And so you got to just like get it out there and get to the point. And same thing with websites. Work a lot with like organization of website. What is your messaging? I mean, it's the same things that I went through when I first started, like in branding myself as a coach. What do I do? What do I offer people? Right. What's my message? And drilling down and getting very clear on that. At first I was just going to I'll work with freelancers as a catch-all. And then I was like, no, in terms of doing some more research and stuff, I'm like, I'm going to really drill down and be like video freelancers. So yeah, I help reels and websites all day, every day. That's a big area that I help people with.
Yeah. And I think once again, it is a big thing because it's really needed, especially when you don't have someone else who will tell you sort of how it is.
Yeah.
Listen, we all need that. We all need someone to come in, look at our work and evaluate it with a different kind of an eye than, maybe we would get from someone else close to us who may be afraid of hurting our feelings and this isn't really a hurting feelings thing. This is, hey, I need to be putting my best foot forward so I can
absolutely
get work. And you need somebody to tell you that, like, hey, do you have, I don't see any of these big name things at the front of your reel, like it's in the back, or, do you have any big name things? Because we need to add them to the reel. So whatever. But you need someone to come in and tell you that. So it's somebody who's been in the business.
To your point too, like I tell people, like, your next reel will be better than this one, and your reel after that will be better than this, and your next website will be better, and the next one will be better than that. It's important. Get something out there. You want it to be solid and great, but don't let perfectionism stop you.
Right.
You got to get something out there, and then you can keep working on the next iteration. Oh, I mangled that one. The next version, you know what I mean? Right. Like the next version will be better, and the next version will be better, and the next version will be better. But you got to get something out that shows who you are and what you do in a succinct manner.
Yeah, 100% agree. Agree with everything you just said.
Yeah.
And the other thing too is I know for a lot of people, and I'm sure you've come across this, there's also a fear of, they have all that, but then they don't know exactly how to, like you said, sell yourself. I'm doing air quotes, by the way, for people who can't see this.
Right.
But it is that, like, it in the creative industry, everybody's very good at being creative, but when it comes to actually going out and getting business and drumming up business and doing what you need to do, that's not something that comes very natural, and you got to work on it. And that's the thing, because it's like, I think for a lot of freelancers, they're very used to getting that steady work. They find those few clients that just send them work.
Yep.
But then one day,
that
place goes out of business. They start working with someone else. That person who was hiring you leaves, and now they bring in new people, or so on and so forth. There's so many different reasons. And then before you know it, like, you had a roster of 10 to 15 people feeding you work, and now it's 5 or 4. 100%. And you've got to go get that more work. And not everybody really knows how to go about and get that work.
Yeah. And I tell people, networking and marketing, it's a skill like anything else. And to use the music analogy, like the first time anyone plays guitar, pick your guitar hero.
Yeah.
The first time you play guitar, it hurts and it sounds bad. Period. But you keep picking up that guitar consistently and practicing it. And, I'm not saying you got to practice 4 hours a day, but consistently pick it up and work on it. Your fingers get stronger. You start building calluses. It starts to sound better. And the more you practice, the better it sounds. And marketing and networking are the same way. And a lot of freelancers have dread around those things because they feel like they're just not good at it. And my messaging to them is just start practicing it. Just start practicing it and do it consistently. Again, like I would rather have somebody do it 3 days a week for 15 minutes than an hour on Monday and then not again for 2 weeks. But it's a skill like anything else, and you just got to practice it. And, part of the freelance, life is you have to be your own hype man or woman, as the case may be. You got to be the one bringing in the gigs. So I definitely encourage people to try to drop the negative feeling that you're just not good at it and just practice it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well said. Well said, my friend. And I think that is a great way to wrap up this interview. I feel like I could talk to you for I feel like I say this to everybody all the time. Somebody's probably like, Chris, you say this all the time, but it is true. I feel like I could talk to everybody for so long about all this, and especially when it comes to this, because this is something, you and I both have quite a bit of experience and history in doing.
Absolutely.
When it comes to this world of this wacky world of film and video. But I hope everybody has enjoyed watching and listening to this interview with Benno. As the show's been going on, I've been bringing up Benno's website information, his IG. It, of course, has been in the comments as well, so you can click on it. It will be in the show notes as well. So if you're listening to this, you can click it and access all his links in the show notes. But just for the audio version, I will say his website is yes=yes.com. And so Benno, why don't you talk about what's on the site?
Yeah, it's my coaching site, and it's, I should say, yes=yes, all spelled out. You'll find a 1-minute video on the front page that says what I do and what my background is. I try to follow what I, practice what I preach. Then there's you can find out about individual sessions, which is the main way I help people. I do have a couple workshops that I do as well. And then a little bit about me and why I think I have the authority to tell you what to do. So that's what you all find there, hopefully in an eye-catching, succinct way. I really do try to lead by example.
No, I love that. I think it's great. And I will admit to you right now that I totally love your video.
Oh, thank you.
And I'm probably going to rip it off. So
please.
No, it is. It's really cool. It's well done. And I saw that and I was like, man, I need a video like that because, I've gotten everything else set up in this business. And it's been almost a year now since I've been doing this. And the one thing I haven't really done, as much video as I do, I haven't done like that promo video, like that, 1-minute video on my page that totally does what you do, like explain what you do. So it's ironic that a guy with as much background in video that I have not made my own 1-minute video.
I'll just say that do it so it does the heavy lifting for you. When people say, what are you all about? I'm like, here, watch a minute video, don't read 3 paragraphs of text. Here's a 60-second video. Check it out.
Nope. Absolutely makes sense. I said that for years and years and years to everybody as I sold them videos. Now I gotta tell myself that.
Absolutely.
And I just want to say, hey, Trisha, just checking in. Trisha McGuire, I'm checking out that book. Good stuff. Thanks. So thanks, Trisha, for watching. I really appreciate you. It's a great book. You are gonna love it. And like Benno said, after you read it, you're gonna find yourself going back to it and rereading certain chapters.
100%.
Yeah, absolutely. So, well, Benno, I want to thank you so much for coming on today, man. This was really great, and I urge everybody who is watching and will watch the replay and is listening to 100% connect with Benno. As I said, all his information is in the show notes and the comments of the video and the show notes of the audio version. So it'll all be there so you can click on it and connect with him at any time. And Benno, if someone wants to set up an appointment with you, best way to do that is through your site or IG or where?
Yep, on my site, there's a little banner. There's an initial discovery session, a free initial discovery session, about 45 minutes to see if we're a good fit for each other. And that can be done right off my website. Yeah, yes=yes.com.
Awesome. Thank you. And so just want to say thanks again for everybody who's been watching, listening, everybody who supports the show. Please make sure that you do, I encourage us, reshare these episodes out. If you're watching on Facebook, LinkedIn, or YouTube, because not only does it help grow the show, but more importantly, it helps the guests that I have on to reach a wider audience and get their message out there. Because the whole reason why I started this show in the first place was to help give people a platform so they can tell their stories and talk about who they are, what they do, and how they are serving others. So please make sure you do that and reshare. And and while you're at it, if you're on YouTube, definitely throw me a subscribe on there, because we're always looking to build the channel there. And wherever you're listening to this, please hit that subscribe button on whatever audio platform, because that will keep you updated on all the latest and greatest. And if you feel like supporting me and the show, you can head over to buymeacoffee.com/CVaglio, because that's always helpful, because the show does have some minor bills to pay. Not a lot, but little bills. So every little bit helps. And I'll definitely make sure I throw you a shout out when we do the show live, for sure. And I always love to help people out when I can. So anyway, I want to thank you guys all so much once again for watching. And we'll be back next Tuesday with another awesome guest. And Benno, thanks a lot, man. Really appreciate you coming on.
Thanks for having me, Chris.
All right, everybody. Cheers. Have an awesome day. And remember to be authentic, be yourself, and always remember to rock it.